This video will look at finding side lengths of a right-angled triangle using what we call the Pythagorean Theorem, and that is a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, where c is equal to the hypotenuse, which is the longest side of the triangle. We'll show that in a second. So the Pythagorean theorem states that the square of the two shorter sides is equal to the square of the longest side. So if we label the triangle A, B, and C, C is the longest side, which is called, this longest side is called the hypotenuse. I'll put that as HYP for short. So, therefore, the square of the two shorter sides, A and B, A squared plus B squared, is equal to the square of the longest side, which is C squared. Let's have a go of putting that into some actual triangles now. Let's now solve the missing side in these triangles. So, C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. You can see it's still the same formula. I've just flipped it around so C squared's on the other side. That's because I know that the longest side is the side we're trying to find. So x squared is going to be equal to the A value, so we'll say A is 3 centimeters, and the B value is 4. So x squared is going to be equal to 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. So x squared is going to be equal to 25. The opposite of squaring something to get x on its own is we need to take the square root of both of those to cancel out the square. So therefore x is going to be equal to the square root of 25, which is 5. This triangle here that we've just done is called the perfect 3, 4, 5 triangle because it represents the Pythagorean theorem perfectly with no decimals. So 3 squared plus 4 squared is actually equal to 5 squared. Let's try it with this one over on the right hand side. Same thing. I could write it out the other way. A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. We can see the A value this time, one of the shorter sides, is 6 meters, so 6 squared. The B value is 10, so 10 squared, and the C value is what we're trying to find, so y squared. 6 squared is 36, 10 squared is 100, which is equal to y squared. If we add those two together, therefore we get 136 is equal to y squared. So then to work out the final value, we need to do the square root of 136. And if we do the square root of 136, we get the answer of 11 2/3 pretty much. The answer is y is going to be equal to 11.66 meters as a decimal. You'll notice that these ones are a bit different. The reason is because we already have the value for the hypotenuse, or the C value. So we need to find another one. So if we write out the formula of A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared, we already have the, we'll label this side A, so we don't have the A value, so A squared plus the B squared value, B is 2 squared, is equal to C squared, which is going to be equal to, sorry, I should write that, 7 squared. So A squared plus 4 is going to be equal to 7 squared, which is 49. Then we need to get A squared on its own. So using our solving techniques with solving linear algebraic equations, or nonlinear equations, we need to therefore subtract 4 from both sides of the equation to get rid of it. We're left with a squared, 4 take away 4, 0. 49 take away 4 is equal to 45. Therefore, to get a on its own, we need to do the square root of 45. And the square root of 45, we know the square root of 49 is 7, so it's going to be a little bit less than that. I'll do that on my calculator now. The square root of 45 is equal to 6.7 meters. There you go. And as you can see, as it should be, the A side here, which we've worked out, is 6.7 meters. We know it should be less than the hypotenuse because the hypotenuse is the longest side. Finally, let's try one more. Same thing, a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. In this case, let's say that we're missing down here the b value. So a is 4, so 4 squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, 9 squared. 4 squared is 16 plus b squared is equal to 9 squared. 9 nines are 81. So same thing, we need to now get the b squared on its own. So we're going to need to subtract 16 from both sides. So 16 take away 16 gives us 0, so then we're left with b squared. 81 take away 16 is equal to 65. Then we'll need to square root on both sides to cancel out, leaving us with b. The square root of 65 is equal to, square root of 65 is equal to 8.06. And it was in centimetres. So as you can see, the square root of 64 is 8, so it's slightly bigger. Yet again, that side is smaller than the hypotenuse, so we know that it works. You can always go and check your answers if you're unsure by putting it back into the original formula of a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Remember, this only applies to right-angled triangles.